Casey is an American martial arts instructor, teaching his students in Japan at Kuga Dojo, a martial arts training center. One day, he goes to a jewelry store to buy a necklace for his pregnant wife, Namiko. After finding the amulet necklace he wants, he notices a not-so-friendly duo keeping an eye on him. Outside the shop, they continue to follow him, but Casey pulls a ninja move, ducking out of sight. Trouble brews when he jumps off and catches their attention. Casey hands over his wallet, but these jerks are after the necklace, and he's not giving it up. They start attacking Casey, and he defends himself using only a piece of cloth. A fierce fight ensues, allowing Casey to give them a good beating. Once he disarms them, Casey notices a curious mark on their knives, but decides to walk away, leaving them nursing their wounds. Casey becomes super popular with Namiko after giving her the necklace. Like, really popular. Just as the lovebirds are about to get intimate, somebody decides it's the perfect moment to ask the audience to hit that like button, subscribe, or whatever. Then in the middle of the night, Namiko's pregnancy cravings kick in. She wakes Casey up, craving some dark chocolate. Even though Casey's told he doesn't have to do anything, he cleverly chooses not to use that option. He decides to head to the supermarket anyway. Little does he know, something awful is waiting for his wife. While he's away, a stranger with a barbed wire weapon sneaks into the house. When Casey finally comes back, he discovers his dead wife on the floor, her neck brutally wounded. With tears in his eyes and a mixture of sadness and anger consuming him, he hugs his wife tightly for the last time. He takes back the amulet he gifted her before, which represents his relentless pursuit of revenge. During the funeral, an old friend named Nakabara shows up to pay his respects. He runs a martial arts school in Thailand and offers Casey training there to get through this difficult time. But Casey easily rejects the offer, saying he has some unfinished business to do. The scene shifts to Myanmar, where a dirty business is run by the drug lord Goro-san. This guy confronts one of his men for having a shortage in the shipment he was transporting, killing him brutally with a barbed wire weapon, the very same weapon that took Namiko's life. In the meantime, Casey figures whoever killed his wife must be tied to the thugs he fought. Those guys pulled a triple kick on him. He heads to Azuma Dojo, where they teach that move. At first, the dojo members circle him, saying the attackers are not members of the dojo. So he takes matters into his own hands and takes on all of them in an unfair fight, beating them down and causing the good boy to speak up. Casey quickly goes to the thugs' hangout where they're eating. He cleverly sends the amulet to their table, enticing them to follow him to a desolate alley where he has set up a trap. The vengeful man saved his best moves for them. He stabs one guy, chops off the other's hand, and finishes him by slicing his throat. After some time, Casey decides to head over to Nakabara's dojo in Thailand. Nakabara introduces his two top students, Lucas and Hiroshi. Later, Casey curiously asks Nakabara why he chose to teach his students in Thailand instead of Japan. In response, Nakabara shares the story of his father. During World War II, Nakabara's father was among the 2,500 elite ninjas who were dispatched to the treacherous jungles of Burmese. These highly skilled ninjas were trained to survive the harsh environments of the jungle with stealth, speed, accuracy, and unique abilities that posed a major threat to the Allies for some time. However, only 14 of them managed to survive in the end. Nakabara's father was one of those 14. After the war, he chose to remain in Thailand. Now Nakabara is following in his father's footsteps. As Casey is speaking with Nakabara, a delivery man arrives with a package, drawing his attention. One day, during sparring with Lucas, Casey finds himself gaining the upper hand. In a fit of frustration, Lucas reaches for a bakken, a wooden training sword. However, Casey grabs hold of the bakken too. This action infuriates Lucas, causing him to unleash a series of unfair strikes against Casey. Casey completely loses control and mercilessly beats his opponent with the bakken. The violent attack comes to an end when Nakabara intervenes. Shortly after, he asks Casey to undergo firewalking training to gain better control over his emotions. However, Casey finds himself unable to complete the training as vivid memories of Namiko continue to haunt his mind. Casey goes to a nearby bar to relax, but things go wrong there too. Out of nowhere, a drunk guy picks a fight with him, and soon his buddies join in. They throw everything they've got at Casey, but he outmatches them all, beating them up one by one. The next day, Casey, still feeling exhausted from the brawl, gets ready to pick fruit in the garden. But Lucas steps in, seeing Casey needs a break, and tells him to rest. Casey heads back to his room and crashes. Meanwhile, Lucas is out picking fruit when a stranger kills him with the deadly barbed wire weapon. Soon, Casey finds out about the murder and tells Nakabara that Lucas was killed with the exact same weapon that Namiko was killed with. Nakabara introduces Casey to Goro by sharing a story. Nakabara's father and Takeda, Casey's father-in-law, along with a man named Isamu, were the top 3 students of the Koga dojo. When their sensei passed away, Isamu challenged Takeda for control of the dojo. In a fierce battle, Takeda emerged victorious, killing Isamu and becoming the grandmaster to lead the dojo. Goro, Isamu's younger brother, witnessed the event and swore to avenge his brother's death. Nakabara reveals that Goro is now the notorious leader of a major drug cartel in Myanmar, using barbed wire as a signature weapon to kill. Concerned for Casey's safety, Nakabara urges him to return to the United States, since being Takeda's son-in-law makes him a target for Goro. However, Casey asks Nakabara's assistance in locating Goro. In response, Nakabara hands Casey an ancient map of the Burmese jungle from his father's time during World War II, marked with the location of hidden ninja weapons. Casey wastes no time and heads straight to Myanmar, where he meets an incredibly friendly taxi driver with a name you should hear yourself.
My name is Mukesh Shivshaka Prasad Yong Ming Tan, but you can call me Mike.
Oh, thank God. Casey's first stop is at the local market, where he does some shopping, and then he heads to an inn. As he gets out of the car, Casey asks Mike about Goro, but he says he doesn't know anything. Nevertheless, Casey decides to hire Mike for a few days. In his room, Casey sets up his arsenal, which consists of a variety of weapons and deadly poisons. Later that night, with Mike's assistance, Casey locates a bar notorious for being filled with drug dealers. Sitting alone, Casey catches the attention of a man who offers him some goodies. Casey follows the man and takes a sample of the substances while pretending to be a customer. Seizing the opportunity, Casey suddenly inquires about Goro, causing the situation to take a turn. The seller and his cohorts swiftly turn hostile, but Casey, accustomed to such encounters, skillfully employs his crafted weapons and defeats them all. Ultimately, Casey leaves the bar empty-handed. When he gets back to the hotel, the stuff he took messes him up bad. He wakes up to find his room being raided by a group of Myanmar army guys. Before they can pull their triggers, Casey catches them off guard and knocks a bunch of them around. But once they start shooting, he starts running away. A thrilling chase ensues, but with tons of soldiers, they end up cornering and capturing him. In the interrogation room, some army big shot starts burning him with a hot iron, grilling him on why he's after Goro and calling him a spy. Casey stays tight-lipped, claiming he's just a tourist, then pretends to pass out. Right before they throw him in a cell, he comes out of his fake unconsciousness and takes down the soldiers who escorted him, wearing their uniforms to blend in. Casey slips past the army guys, who are busy watching a cockfight, and makes it to the general's office. Right away, he gives the general a good slam on his desk, causing it to break apart. Casey figures the general must be one of Goro's men, since he asked about the man earlier. Holding a pair of scissors to the general's throat, Casey demands to know where Goro's at. Eventually, the general spills the beans, pointing to Tago village, but even that can't save him. After killing the general, Casey catches Mike taking cash from one of the officers, revealing that he was the one who ratted him out. Casey sneaks into Mike's car before he can get out of that place. Later, Casey springs up on Mike, who nearly jumps out of his skin. Despite Mike's betrayal, Casey sees some good in him and lets the whole thing slide. They head off to Tago village together. Upon reaching the jungle, Casey comes across 4 of Goro's armed thugs out on patrol. Using his stealth skills, he swiftly takes down 3 of them before they can even blink. However, the 4th guy proves to be a tough nut to crack. He tosses a grenade and starts shooting at Casey like there's no tomorrow, but Casey, with his crafted weapons, puts an end to the threat and then snags their gear. Delving deeper into the jungle with Nakabara's map, Casey locates the resting places of the ninjas. He arms himself with a cache of ninja weapons hidden beneath a wooden tombstone. Under the light of the full moon, Casey puts on his ninja suit and grabs an arsenal of weapons. Casey eventually discovers Goro's covert base. Using his ninja gear, he dispatches some guards and blows up their gathering spot without a hitch. After setting off a few more grenades, the whole place turns into an inferno. Casey keeps taking out the remaining guards until he confronts Goro's top henchman. A brutal showdown ensues, but Casey, despite feeling overwhelmed, ultimately takes him out by stabbing the man's heart and snapping his neck. Casey heads to Goro and confronts him about Namiko. But Goro pretends to have no idea of her death. This ticks off Casey and he tries to attack Goro, but the old guy injures him with his nasty barbed wire weapon. Despite being injured, Casey fights back and slashes Goro's stomach, getting the upper hand. Even though he's hurt, Goro doesn't give up. He keeps coming at Casey and wraps his barbed wire around Casey's neck. Casey uses his sword to break free and defend himself. Finally, after a tough fight, Casey takes Goro down for good with a finishing move.
Fatality.
Casey heads back to Nakabara's place and the guy greets him with a big smile. While they're having a good time, the delivery guy shows up again. Casey notices that the mark on the dude's knife matches the thugs who tried to mug him. Putting 2 and 2 together, Casey figures out that Nakabara orchestrated the whole thing to push him into killing Goro. Nakabara comes clean, admitting he's been using the dojo to run illegal stuff. He saw Goro's cartel as competition and wanted Casey to take him out to take over the market in Southeast Asia. Nakabara gives Casey an ultimatum: join him or face his fate. Obviously, Casey's not down to team up with Namiko's killers, so they throw down in a brutal brawl until Casey delivers a powerful kick that sends Nakabara crashing into a wall, which reveals a secret chamber on the other side filled with valuable ancient artifacts. In the room, Nakabara grabs a sword and sneaks towards Casey, who grabs a wooden pole to defend himself. Nakabara breaks Casey's pole, but the latter displays his power with a triple kick. They engage in a sword fight, with Casey slashing Nakabara's midsection and Nakabara jabbing Casey's left shoulder. Casey removes the sword, but finds himself in a tough spot. As Casey spots the barbed wire that took his wife's life, Nakabara makes a sudden move towards him. With a swift dodge, Casey grabs the wire and wraps it around Nakabara's neck, killing him and taking his revenge. After Nakabara's death, Casey exposes his true intentions to Hiroshi. Hiroshi discovers drugs in the package that was sent to Nakabara. Realizing the damage Nakabara's actions could cause to the dojo's reputation, Hiroshi decides to let the whole thing slide and appreciates Casey's revelation. Casey then returns to Japan and throws Namiko's amulet into the water, indicating that he has finally found peace after getting revenge 3 times. Moral of the story: before exacting revenge on someone, make sure they're not the wrong people. Thanks for watching and see you next time.